In the Hearts and Minds, Book 0, The Birth of a Hero, Story 2, Who Fought for Your Freedom? Varti swept crispy petals off the memorial's gloss. Her fingers squeaked against the side table, hair-raising in the apartment's silence. She had done it. She had finally done it. "Don't look at me like that," she warned the man in the photo, who stared at her with the fuzzy look of old photographs. All the newer ones had burned when they'd fled, and her stupid fool of a husband had gone and gotten himself killed before they could go to a proper photographer. The young man who stared at Varti didn't much look like the man she'd married. He was young, too young. There was a glimmer in those eyes that made him look untrustworthy, made him look like the kind of man Varti couldn't stand. He looked nothing like her husband, but she was stuck with this roommate for the rest of her life. This grinning fool had taken the place of a man with crinkles at the edges of his mouth and hands that never shook. Varti hated him. "Where's my broom?" She passed milk bottles piled in a pyramid in the corner of the kitchen. She skirted around them, searching in the cramped space for an inconspicuous brown handle. The ironing board stood, a silent gopher, linens draped across it like a mane. 2 washcloths fell to the ground as she missed the narrow space between its towering form and the nearest table chair. Varti grabbed the seat by the bauble sticking from the top. The folded board leaned precariously on its thin legs, tilting back and forth. A giant white linen spooled to the floor, and Varti held in a sudden spike of rage that nearly blew out her stomach. Taking a pause, dark spots ringed her vision, and Varti felt foolish. She feared there might be some kind of parasite in her gut. Why did she get so worked up over a curtain falling slowly to the ground? It was balanced precariously. The ironing board was not a storage drawer. She had been meaning to properly put away all of its adornments for ages. And of course, the biggest, most unwieldy linen was the one to fall. It was made of a silky material. Any little bump ought to send it tumbling. Really, why had she gotten so worked up? Varti pressed a hand to her forehead. It felt hot and sticky. Was this sweat? Outside, the chug drove down her street. Varti heard its telltale crunch as the wheels passed over sticks and bricks. Through the slit in the kitchen curtains, she watched the top hatch flip up, clattering against the metal box with a crash. A helmeted head popped out. This one could barely keep the thing on their skull. Of course, they didn't make child sizes for helmets. The soldier struggled to pull a giant green and black box out of the chug's innards. Red-faced and panting, they poked and prodded at where it sat edged against the vehicle's flat top. More moments, more panting, more struggling ensued as they unearthed a thick cord and a dented microphone. "Announcement! Announcement!" the soldier squeaked. "Amnesty! Amnesty declared for all fallen frosted. All frosted killed for our country are to be forgiven for their previous crimes. President Berman quote. President Berman himself. Quote, this is a real quote." Varti's eye twitched as that prepubescent voice carried on. Had they used to sell newspapers before being conscripted into service? Across the window ledge, that brown handle stood at her shoulders. It almost felt like another being, someone to watch the daily announcement with, someone to stand beside her and weather each storm. Just someone. The frosted sinned. They hurt those around them, giving in to demonic influences and empowering them with abilities that are not natural, the soldier screeched. Surely the president did not sound like that. In choosing salvation, the Frosted died for our freedom. Without them, rotten Fromagians might have forced us back under tyrannical rule. We cannot set our path onto peace without honoring their final sacrifices, and for that, we forgive their sins. The Frosted are pardoned upon death. This is an official decree. Announcement delivered for the day. The Chug closed its hatch top with a slam and drove skittishly down the cobblestones and off to the next street. Varti's mouth twisted up. She looked at her companion. Before I sweep, I'll have some tea. The broom handle remained staring out into the empty street. Skirting past the ironing board, without bumping into it this time, Varti set the kettle on the stove. Her mind thankfully empty, while her hands knew which cupboard to find the tea bags and sugar packets. She tidied her cup, ripping open the blue packets of sugar and leaning them against the bread box in preparation. In no time at all, the kettle sang, and Varti began to pour its steaming depths into her husband's tin mug when she felt a severe chill puddle against her back. A slight pressure dipped across her arm, so slight Varti barely felt it underneath her ballooning sleeves. Mid-pour, she happened to glance toward the unfamiliar sensation. A blue hand tugged at her, barely reaching the skin of her wrists. Varti screamed, splashing the hot water all down the bodice of her skirts. The blue hand appeared out of nowhere. It reached. It vied. Varti fell, boneless, against the countertop. Her knees shook so much that it was only in their shaking that they could remain upright. Still, the hand did not recede, as it scrambled closer, grabbing hold of the air and using it like a rope to levy itself forward. Varti could only wait. In her fear, her voice had left her. Now, it teetered out of her throat like a violent kettle. As it came closer and closer and closer still, Varti could make out an arm attached to that hand. An arm that was attached to a shoulder. A blue man scraped his way into existence by sheer will, his features so indistinct he was made up of hardly more than air. Varti felt a change in that air, and the ghoul dove past her shoulder beneath the cupboard. She could feel nothing but cold from this creature mere centimeters away. The body receded, and Varti hallucinated that she saw a mouth with crinkles at its edges. As the ghoul disappeared back into nothing, it held the box of Truvia's latest, healthier sugar recipe. The blue packet slid from the box's opening, splatting onto the floor. As Varti watched, that indistinct body that had begun to recede bent back out of that weird spot in the middle of nowhere. Those blue limbs vied for the packets on the ground. The hands shook. They shook. It was this thought that gave Varti comfort and quelled her fear. She fell like timber onto the hard floor. As her vision dimmed, she watched those hands. Hands that trembled, hands that did not remain still. Slap uselessly at the sugar packets. The hand that had grabbed the box could not grab the sugar. It could not grab anything anymore. When Varti woke to a mess of sugar spilled out on the ground, she threw it all away. Then she turned the picture of her late husband flat on the memorial and left for the doctor's office. She did not return home for a long time.